Welcome, class! Today we're going to learn about the birth of political parties in the United States.
So, like Democrats and Republicans?
Not quite. Democrats and Republicans as we know them today didn't start emerging until far more recently. When the US was first becoming a nation, parties weren't on the forefront of the Founding Fathers' minds, but they quickly became a reality. First, let me give you some context. Before the Constitution, the US had the Articles of Confederation, which we learned about last class. The Constitutional Convention was held in Philadelphia from May 25th to September 17th, 1787. Some of the most influential people of the time got together to create a new way to set up the new United States Constitution.
So, from all the notes I've been taking on these speeches, it seems we have come to a conclusion.
So, Madison, when was the last time you took a break?
1776. Anyways, from my notes it seems we've almost come to an agreement. With the base of the Virginia Plan, we've created a constitution most here can agree upon. We've been here for 5 months, but finally, maybe we can go home.
The rest of us have been going home periodically this whole time. You're the only one that insisted on staying here and taking minutes.
But I think that's finally that. We can sign this thing and go home. After that, it's just getting the states to ratify it.
Ratifying the Constitution would not be an easy task. Everyone was scared of a too powerful centralized government. The decision of whether or not to ratify the Constitution became the issue of what's widely known as the first US parties, though they didn't call themselves parties at the time. The Federalists were in favor of ratifying the Constitution. They favored a strong central government and felt that the Constitution outlined the best way to set up the government that they could come to an agreement on. Typically, Federalists came from more urban areas, where information traveled quicker. The Anti-Federalists formed to oppose the Federalists. They were opposed to ratifying the Constitution because they thought it gave far too much power to the federal government. They supported instead smaller state and local governments. Typically, Anti-Federalists were farmers or from more rural areas.
It's important to the future of our country that enough states decide to ratify the Constitution. I need to make sure this happens. I must take up my pen and write to defend our Constitution.
We spent 5 months working on getting nearly everyone in the convention to finally agree on this Constitution. We can't do that again. I'll help you, my friend. Here, I bet our friend John Jay will help us out too.
Fantastic, fantastic. I think I can probably get all this done in 150 essays. If we write 5 a week, I think we could get it done in, about 3 months. Or if we need the extra time...
Hey, let me just stop you here. We can get this done in 25 essays. We can divide it evenly, about 8 apiece. We will argue to the state of New York why the Constitution is what this country needs.
Only 25 essays? How could we possibly explain everything in as short as 25 essays?
Trust me, that is more than enough.
Alexander joins forces with James Madison and John Jay to write a series of essays defending the new United States Constitution entitled the Federalist Papers. The plan was to write a total of 25 essays, the work divided evenly among the 3 men. In the end, they wrote 85 essays in the span of 6 months. John Jay got sick after writing 5. James Madison wrote 29. Hamilton wrote the other 51.
The 3 published the Federalist Papers in several New York newspapers under the pseudonym Publius. In 1778, the Constitution was ratified in enough states to become law. One of the things that satisfied the Anti-Federalists enough to get this done was the promise of a Bill of Rights.
What is the Bill of Rights?
The Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. They defined what the federal government could and couldn't do, ensuring that some powers remained with the states. They also detailed rights that any citizen holds, such as the right to free speech, assembly, religion, press, and petition in the First Amendment. They were finally written in 1791 by James Madison. In the very first presidential election, in a unanimous vote, George Washington was elected President of the United States, with John Adams as his Vice President. He asked Thomas Jefferson, who had just returned from France as the United States' ambassador, to be Secretary of State in his cabinet. Then, he asked Alexander Hamilton, a close acquaintance of Washington's during the Revolutionary War, to be his Secretary of the Treasury. Little did he know these two disagreed on almost every single issue one could think of.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this cabinet meeting. The issue on the table today is Hamilton's debt plan. He wanted the federal government to assume all the states' debt that they acquired during the Revolutionary War, creating a national debt.
That sounds like the worst idea that I have ever heard.
Assuming this debt and then paying it off as one will strengthen the economy of our nation. To pay the debts, the government offers bonds that the wealthy in the nation buys, giving them a stake in the success of our government. Then, to pay that off, we impose a new tariff on exports and a tax on whiskey.
A tax on whiskey? The people would revolt, unless you don't remember what happened when England decided to put a tax on tea.
It might be unpopular, but they wouldn't revolt. After this plan comes to fruition, America's credit will be incredible, so if the nation ever needs to borrow money, we'll be able to.
Your plan gives too much power to the federal government. This is what we have been trying to avoid. Remember? This is what we have been trying to avoid this whole time. If you get your way, America will end up as England again. Listen to this guy. He's just trying to enrich himself at the expense of our nation.
You're one to talk, Mr. Francophile. If we had it your way, we'd join France in bloody rebellion just for the fun of it, with public beheadings down the block every other Tuesday. How does that sound?
Hey, play nice, you two. You both know that's not true.
Hamilton's debt plan, along with other financial plans he put forward, such as creating a national bank, became some of the most divisive issues of the era. Hamilton's supporters continued uniting under the title of Federalists, supporters of a strong central government, while Jefferson and his supporters are now known as Democratic Republicans. Federalists had a lot of support from merchants, bankers, and many wealthy plantation owners. Most were well educated and owned property, in essence, the upper class. In foreign affairs, they favored England. Democratic Republicans were primarily craftsmen, frontier settlers, and poorer farmers, in essence, the common man. In foreign affairs, they sympathized with revolutionary France. After Washington, John Adams, a Federalist, was elected president. Jefferson, a Democratic Republican, was his vice president. While the two were friends, they held very different political views. Because of how at odds they were during this presidency, it was very soon after, in 1804, that the 12th Amendment was ratified, which is why the president and vice president run on the same ticket. Before that, it was just whoever comes in first gets the president, and whoever comes second is the VP.